Hello, and welcome to Book 5, Chapter 20 of You Should Be Reading. Today, today I'd like to talk to you about The Devil's Evidence by Simon Kurt Unsworth. Now, some of you may remember a while back I picked up The Devil's Detective, the first book in this lovely little series. And I didn't know anything about it, hadn't heard anything about it, and it just intrigued me, the cover. And then the blurb on the back intrigued me even more, and I absolutely loved the book. Then I found out he was doing a sequel, The Devil's Evidence, and this just expounds on the absolute fun little universe that he has created here, and the story of Thomas Fool, the Devil's Information Man, the Devil's Detective of the first book. At the end of the first book, he becomes the chief of the information men, and suddenly there's a whole lot more information men, and hell is changing, and there's rules and everything coming down. Only now, in this one, there's a lot more rules, a lot more information men, a lot more people investigating crimes, but now there's also Mr. Tap, a demon in charge of a group called The Evidence that goes around collecting evidence and basically figuring out who did it from that, except they don't figure out who did it because they aren't very good at their job. It's very totalitarian in their way of doing things, which goes against what Thomas Fool wants to do with the information men and whatnot. So both humans and demon kind alike are all of a sudden afraid and don't want to talk to anybody, the information man or the evidence, because they might be disappeared. They might be found guilty of a crime that they didn't commit. The rules that are now all in place are much vaster than any before. There's so much more of them. So people are afraid of breaking rules that they don't even know. They're starting to be afraid of the law now instead of the chaos that had been before. And it is quite interesting. What happens going into this is that there's been a series of fires in hell that the bureaucracy of hell is concerned about. They don't know what's causing it. I mean, so what? Buildings are burning in hell, right? It's a place that's technically on fire. But they aren't the ones behind it, and they want to know who is. So Thomas Fool and his information men are looking into it. Only he just gets started when he gets called and put on a delegation being sent to heaven, because heaven wants him on this delegation because there's been accidents in heaven. Of course, Thomas Fool sees the first one and he's just like, this person has been murdered. But the angels up in heaven don't want to believe that, because heaven is supposed to be perfect. Therefore, there can be no murders in heaven because heaven is perfect. Completely circular logic, and they just don't see it. And their very nature and the way they are impedes his investigation. There is some very interesting little things going on with the angels up there, including one in particular named Mayal, who seems to be quite powerful in the hierarchy of angels. May even be God himself. I don't know. There's a couple things that hint at that. There's also an information man named Marianne, and she and Fool may have a bit of a relationship kind of blooming here in this particular book, as well as the fact that he's seeing the ghosts of Summer and Gordy, the only other two information men who died in the first book. They're in this, and they kind of come back into things as well. So it is quite a story. And I don't want to spoil anything, so if any of you are planning on reading this book, shut the video off now. Go read it. Come back and watch this video when you have read it. Um, but for those of you who don't mind spoilers, this is where things get good, because the way this book all plays out, everything seems to be, it takes everything that was kind of in the first book, all these successes that Thomas Fool uh, basically acquired, all that success that he had uh, been triumphant with in the first book. It kind of takes all of that and just stomps all over it over the course of this. Um, basically, uh, the first book brought him up, and the second book cast him down. Because towards the end of this, while he does succeed in finding out who was behind everything, bringing them to justice, and so on, while he does succeed in doing that, it comes at a cost to him, where he will be, from that point on, kind of a pariah among hell. No one would talk to him. No one will help him. So he's the leader of all these information men still, but nobody's going to make his job easier. So, and on top of that, he loses Marianne and Summer and Gordy, who end up getting brought back to life in heaven and come with him back to hell, only to end up dying again. Just brutal gut punch of an ending for him. And it's really good. I'm suspecting there's going to be another book after this. Maybe more than one, I don't know. But I hope there's going to be more, because there's more story to tell here for Thomas Fool. And I'm hoping that at some point there will be maybe a little bit of a happy ending. I can understand if there isn't one, because this is very much in the vein of noir detective storytelling. And there usually isn't many happy endings for a character like that. But one can hope. So that's going to be it for this episode of You Should Be Reading. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please give that like button a tap. Give that subscribe button a tap as well, if you haven't already, so you can be kept apprised of when I do new videos. And throw a comment in the comment section. What do you think about The Devil's Evidence, if you've read it? Do you know of any other books in this vein that you think I might be interested in? Throw those comments in the comment section. I'd love to get a discussion going with some people. And until next time, remember, you should be reading The Devil's Evidence by Simon Kurt Unsworth. And I'll see you next time.